Okay, so hello out there, and thank you to my subscribers and also to my members. If you can consider subscribing if you haven't done so, it just helps me keep making these videos. So before we get going, this is a 5 a.m. Zoe, so it's a less common drivetrain, especially this late. This is about as late as you could get them. I reckon it's actually the latest. So you see it's got this metal box on the top, okay, straight under the bonnet, right, okay, so 5 a.m, remember that. And then we're going to have a quick look at a 5AQ just to compare. So you can see totally different. So we've got the black plastic fan housing. So the 5AQ has got the air-cooled motor, and then the 5AM with the metal box has got the water-cooled motor. The 5AM was the original type that came out, although this car that we're looking at, which is this one, this is actually a late 2019 or could be even an early 2020 car, so really, really late to have a 5 a.m. And yeah, we're going to see what on earth Renault have done. All right, let's get into it. So it didn't charge was the initial issue, and he took it to Renault and it drove into Renault. Renault looked at it and now it won't do anything. It won't start, and it certainly won't charge, which is lovely. Thank you, Renault. So, yeah, the interesting thing about this car, it's a 5 a.m. So for that motor type was the original one that first came out with the Zoe in 2019. So it was made by Continental. Renault just bought that as a solution from Continental. And this is the variant that will do the rapid AC charging, basically. So it will do 43 kilowatt AC charging, which is pretty cool. I'm not sure of any other car that's come out that can do that. But as of about 2015, 2016, Renault produced their own drivetrain, which is the other one with the black round fan housing on the top. So that's called the 5AQ. That one would only do 22 kilowatt max charging speed. But it was a little bit more efficient. You got a little bit more mileage out of it, basically. So, and then they sold them both, but Renault pushed their own ones. They would encourage you to have theirs, which could only do the 22 kilowatt charging, but could go a little bit further on a charge. But yeah, you could get this one like as an option. Basically, have the sort of rapid AC charging model. To be honest, nowadays, AC chargers that can do more than 22 kilowatts are pretty rare. There will just be public chargers, tend to be the triple header BP units with three cables attached. So yeah, an interesting one. The real downside of these cars as well is getting parts is difficult because lots of the cars are older, unless you're buying new parts, which are quite expensive. If you're looking at second-hand parts, the cars that they're coming from, there's not as many later, especially as late as this. This is it's not quite a unicorn, but it's pretty late. So we've got some paperwork from Renault, which I'm just going to try and put in a configuration that you can read it. So we've got a few things. We've got this sort of printout of some live data. Then we've got this, and this has got a date on 25th of the 7th. Interesting. And they're obviously looking at insulation resistance there. Okay. I'll come back to that in a minute. We've got, so this is from Renault's Clip system. So this is their sort of dealer diagnostic tool. So we've got a readout of some fault codes here. We've got a couple of pages on this one, although the second one's got some not very interesting things on it. It came in black and white, unfortunately, but I'm presuming these colours, it's highly likely this is orange and that's red. It's likely that means that this is sort of inactive, whatever colour that is, and this darker one that's probably red is probably active. So at this point, whenever they did this, because there's another one of these that's slightly different, at this point we've got the main code is insulation. We've got a few things. Zoe's always have this charging terminal communication, telematics, USB, blah blah blah. Nothing particularly interesting. Other than, is there anything interesting? No, particularly. Just that one, really. That 44IF2 and insulation. So that would cause a charging issue, but it's more likely to cause charging than non-drive, really. So that's one. And then they've then printed that. Oh, look, yeah, you see it's red. Yeah. So we've got that, but that doesn't really give us a whole lot more, but that's obviously early. So that goes with the first sheet. Fantastic. And then we've got this other one. See, now we've got more of dark red probably. So we've got insulation that we had before. Now we've got safety interlocks. Another exciting one. 12-volt battery, 12-volt battery, 12-volt battery charge control unit. Okay. And then we got some telematic, steering lock, and tyre under inflation. Okay, so nothing too interesting. So the main ones on here, 12-volt battery, not too worried about. Car's probably been sat around and got those codes. So we've got original insulation, 440F2. And now we've gained a safety interlock code. And that's interesting because that would definitely cause that motor failure. That motor failure, by the way, it doesn't mean the motor has failed. It just means there's a major drivetrain fault. It should say drivetrain fault, really. It's just a poor French translation. It doesn't mean the actual motor, it just means drivetrain. So what I'm kind of thinking here, knowing that the car drove into Renault and then kind of broke down, is I'm sort of thinking, I'm just going to wake it up because I'm going to use the diagnostic machine in a minute. I'm sort of thinking that when it came in, it was in this condition where we had an insulation code that would quite likely cause non-charge. And then they kind of like had a dig into this. So then they looked at that fault code and there's not a lot from there, but they've obviously opened up the code or whatever. And then they've been looking at some live data. So yes, it's going well here. So they've highlighted insulation resistance threshold 2. Well, that's not the one I would be highlighting. I'll be highlighting this one, insulation resistance value of 0 ohms, which is a bit low. So insulation resistance in this scenario, I would expect to be 1,000,000 ohms for a good Zoe. A million ohms is actually quite low. That's 1 mega ohm. Is still very low, but in the live data of a Zoe, it will only show you a maximum of 1,000,000. But the fact it's 0 is a big concern, so that's going to need investigating. The rest of this is kind of interesting because we've got an interlock fault potentially, and these are all the interlocks. So this is the car trying to sort of working out the integrity of the high voltage system. So they're all closed, which is fine. Heating resistor it doesn't have. That's for cold markets. The other interesting thing here is 14-volt voltage request. So this car is not doing anything. It's not charging a 12-volt battery. Okay. But according to this data, at the point this data was taken, the car wanted 13.6 volts from the DC-DC converter, and the 14-volt DC-DC voltage measure was 13.5. So when this live data was taken, this car was charging its 12-volt battery, which it isn't now. So this is obviously when it came in, with the first one where it's just got insulation. And then once they'd finished looking at it, once they'd done their diagnostics and it was even more broken, now we've got safety interlocks as well. So interesting. So, and obviously the interlocks on that sheet are shown as closed, albeit I don't think that's all of them. So we've got some fault codes here. What we're going to do, because we've got loads, is we're going to basically just clear them out. You wouldn't necessarily always do that. And, I wouldn't recommend just clearing them out without having a look. But in this scenario, this fault's going to come straight back, and I'm not interested in the history. If you've got an intermittent fault or something, so what happened there is the diagnostic machine cleared the fault, and then it came straight back, basically, which is what we want. And we got one, which is cool. So I wouldn't always recommend just blatting them out. See, we've not got the 12-volt battery charging now. But in this scenario, I'm going to do that. So, because you might have removed something that was useful potentially. So safety interlocks, 432F1. Okay, so what that basically means, I'm going to go back in there actually, is the car thinks that one of the orange cables or something, a cover with a high voltage system, something, just going to press that button so it doesn't go to sleep. It thinks that something in terms of high voltage safety is not correctly connected or plugged in. So let's have a look in here. We're kind of doing what Renault have done by looking at the live data, but the car is in a bit of a different sort of situation than when they pulled up that data. So heating resistor, that's unavailable. Traction battery interlock open. Okay, right, well, okay, wonderful. So that's obviously a concern. The car's not going to start when it thinks the traction battery's not connected. It thinks the AC compressor is using 6 kilowatts. insulation resistance threshold. Yeah, so that's still 2. So junction box air conditioning compressor. So it thinks the air conditioning compressor is plugged into the junction box. Heating resistor interlock. So it doesn't have a heating resistor, but it has like a blanking plug that covers the place where it would be plugged in, kind of thing. So there isn't the sort of the actual heater, but there is a connector that it would be plugged into. So junction box covers closed, charge, and the charge cable is plugged in. So that's the charge cable from the Type 2 socket, and then this is the cable from the battery onto the PEB, basically, which it's happy is plugged in. Insulation resistance, yep, it's still 0, which is rather low. And is there anything else interesting? The air conditioning compressor is doing 9,000 RPM. I don't think so. It can be a bit confused. Don't worry about that. Minus 80. Yeah, so it wants 13.5 volts and it's not getting it because the high voltage system is not coming on. Okay, so we've got traction battery interlock open. So what we need to do for that, a couple of places we need to check, is one is under the footwell. So there is the main safety fuse under here. I have to point out that although it is the safety fuse, in the socket of that fuse is full battery pack voltage. So you have to be extremely careful if you're basically planning to take that out. Okay, extremely careful. The other thing that could sort of lead towards is the actual connector on the front of the battery itself. So how Renault have managed to get it in this state, I'm not really sure. Let's just have a look at their data. Did that cover traction battery charging junction box heating compressor? No, I don't think it does it? So traction battery interlock 1. Don't think that's on here, is it? We've got traction battery charge, heating resistor. It's just that list that we had before, isn't it? Heating resistor, aircon, heating resistor, junction box, traction battery charge, traction battery interlock. No, so that one isn't on this list anyway, and it's shown separately on mine. But that will be the cause of that, basically. So the battery is telling the car that something high voltage is not plugged in, basically, whether it's the cable on the front of the battery or the one under the floor. So I'm just going to take some cover panels off. I'll start here because that's easiest, and we'll see what's going on. Well, I'll see you in a mo. See where this rabbit hole leads. All right, cheers. Okay, so it's pretty windy, but we're going to go under the car in a second. So I've inspected the connector, the high voltage safety plug, I should say, under the footwell, which you have to do carefully as stated. But it's all normal, it's present, there's no damage, nothing's bent, burnt or anything like that. And it is physically there, so that's good. So just moving on to the connector on the front of the battery. So just looking underneath, taking off cover panels, something, stuff like that. The most interesting thing is that they've got the bolts the wrong way round. So, sorry, I just need to adjust my hands. Right, so under here, what you get under these is you get this kind of like plastic bit with sort of wings it's got here. And then you get, and there's a couple of the plastic like plugs, and then there's this aluminium tray here. So this aluminium tray should have little bolts, and then the plastic tray should have big black bolts. So the little silver ones go in the small one. Really easy to remember. But so this is, just grab some, sorry. So these black ones go in the big black under tray, and then these little ones go in the into the metal aluminium cover. But as you can see there, it's got the wrong bolts in it. Okay, wonderful. So whoever was here last, which must have been Renault, because they had this car last, has put the bolts in the wrong way around. This under tray is actually also incorrectly fitted, because this is on the top and it shouldn't be. It should be underneath this one. So it's got like a slot. So if I just pull this back, you can see that slot. So that, if you loosen this bolt, you put it kind of in between these two layers, and then that sort of sandwiches it. But it's just tucked in there. So that's not, well, it's not safe because it's not correctly fitted. There's a bolt missing here. There, I can't really see too much over the other side. There's another one there. Is there a bolt there? Yeah, I think there's a bolt. No, there's no bolt there either, is there? It's just clipped in. So half of this has got no bolts in it. They've put the bolts the wrong way round. And then just looking in there, that looks like you can see too much orange. So I suspect the black locking collar, basically just through inexperience or brute force, poor handling, that kind of thing, has been pushed too far forward, so the orange is not fully all the way forward. So I'm just going to get this under tray fully off, but just kind of wanted to show you really that, yeah, that you can see as I've moved that down, that slot's come over. So it should, yeah, if that was on top of that plastic one, then the slot goes round that bolt. What a mess. And this is the main dealer. I mean, is this not rocket science? You can't put an under tray back on. This is just like stupid, really. Anyway, let's get this back on, or get this off even, get that connector sorted out, and then at least we can start the car and I won't have to push it around. Right, back in a mo. Okay, so we've got the covers off and we can have a good look at this connector now. So that does look to me like it's not correctly fitted. So where, oops, sorry, I'm just adjusting my hands so that I can, it's really awkward. Right, so you can see there where those little orange, sorry, it goes out of focus when I do that, but those two little orange, like, almost look like tabs. I've just had a look on a car that works, and on that car you can only just see the tip of those. So it does appear the orange bit is sticking out further, and that just kind of, it looks, I don't know if it comes out in the camera, but it looks like it's kind of like bending down a little bit. There also looks like there's kind of too much on this cable, so that kind of indicates that should be further in. Well, and that's what the car says. So yeah, I mean, given the sort of potential skill level, sorry, it's really awkward on here, trying not to get my hands in front of the camera. Yeah, given the sort of skill level of the person who's obviously been working on this, that wouldn't be massively surprising. What can basically happen, so you see this sort of round black bit in the middle, that's like, it's got like gears on it, and it kind of like all rotates. Sometimes what can happen, if you force it, it kind of skips a tooth. And so it all rotates forward and backwards, but it's just not quite in the right place. So it kind of locks it, but it locks it not quite in, and it looks like it's not quite in. So I'm just going to do high voltage shutdown and verify that on this vehicle, do a lockout, and then we can take that connector off and see what's occurring. All right, cheers. Well, guess what? The fault codes don't lie. Fancy that, it's now in ready mode. So if we have a look at this connector, basically what I did, I took it off, and which way are we going to go? Let's go this way. And yeah, just checked it. It hadn't jumped a tooth, but if you look at it now, so if we go there, see, you can't hardly see those little tabs I was sort of trying to point out badly. So yeah, if we go, so like just here, there was little tabs there, wasn't there? And sometimes you can see like the tip of them on another car. If I stretch out, you might just see the tip of them, or you might not. But whereas before you could see them, so this orange part was just a lot further out. So yeah, now I took it off. So this black bit, once you do the various sort of three-stage process, this black bit goes back, and then it sort of pulls the orange bit back. It went back to the correct place, and then I thought, okay, I compared it to another cable, and I was like, yeah, okay, it's in the right state, sort of thing. But when I put it back on, this orange bit is now much further forward. It's like that's been pulled. It's like someone's intended to take this off and has kind of ham-fistedly yanked it, so it's ended up just not as far forward as it should be, basically. But yeah, so I just put it back on, and yeah, now the car starts. I mean, come on. Oh, sorry. This is the main dealer. I mean, it's really not good, is it? Right, so I've just run the diagnostics, and we're going to use that hand actually, because now we're back to the state it was when the guy took it to Renault. So the car runs, but it's got battery charging possible. Okay, so let's just run a diagnostic report. So we just got 2 fault codes in EVC. I think they're the only ones. Yeah, just 2 EVC. Right, memory safety interlock. So that's the fault we've just fixed. That 432F1, we saw that earlier, and yeah, that's now just in memory, so that's no longer active. And then we've got 440F2 active installation. So this is why it's not going to charge, and why it knows on the dash it's not going to charge. So I'm just going to switch it off because we know that's all good. No, okay, cancel, we're not going in there. So let's just go in and double check these installation figures, because now we can actually fix the fault it had. Now we've wasted all that time just fixing what Renault have caused. I mean, the undertray's not being fitted correctly. It's just like, you know, and sometimes I work hard to get manufacturer information, so I can't find the instructions and things like that, trying to get hold of original procedures. They've got everything. They've got the disassembly and assembly procedures at their fingertips. I mean, it's like, come on. Right, so insulation resistance, yeah, that was the threshold that they highlighted. Not interested in that one. Resistance value 0 ohms. Okay, cool. So now we need to look into that. So insulation resistance is the integrity of the high voltage system. So with the body of the car, just like any petrol or diesel car, the body of the car is the 12 volt negative. Then obviously you've got the positive, so you run positive wires everywhere. You want to power a bulb or something, you run a little wire from the, if you know it's red, let's say this is a 12 volt battery, that's the red connector of the battery, run a wire, you got your bulb, and you just bolt it down to the body and it's going to work. You know, you need a switch or whatever, but you get the idea that the body of the car is negative. With the high voltage system, it should be totally separated from the body of the car. Okay, so you've got a motor controller which takes power, so it's got a positive and a negative, and neither of those are bolted to the body of the car. Much like it's got an air conditioning compressor, that's part of the high voltage system, it's got a positive and negative, and yeah, it's got a positive and negative, and those are part of the high voltage system and not connected to the body of the car. So what this car is saying is it's testing between the high voltage system and the body of the car, and there is a link there. There is low resistance, and there shouldn't be. There should be really high resistance because they shouldn't be connected. So yeah, I can do my sort of normal diagnosis now that we've fixed the issue that Renault have caused. So I hope that is interesting. Yeah, I'm going to have another further look at this vehicle, but oh dear. Right, well, I've told the customer, and I'll crack on with the proper bit of the diagnosis now. See if we can get it to charge. All right, cheers, bye.